6 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few players I look to stash. You could beat the waiver wire and not have to use fab money, whatever the case may be for fantasy owners. Have these players on your roster before possibly they get to expand their role or breakout. In week 6, the first player, Donnie Mitchell of the Indianapolis Colts, and now Michael Pittman. He's going to be out multiple weeks with a back injury for this Indianapolis Colts team, and Donnie Mitchell could fill in that role, I think, more than an Alec Pierce on this roster, and also Josh Downs as your number 2 wide receiver. Donnie Mitchell, we saw some flashes from him early in the season, but now he hasn't been playing much over the last couple weeks, but now he gets an opportunity once again out there in 91% of fantasy leagues. Week 4 versus Pittsburgh, only a carry, 10 yards, 3 targets. This week, they used him on a gadget play, 24 passing yards, a rush for 4 yards, and 4 catches, 38 yards. So they're trying to use him in different ways, and now with Pittman out multiple weeks with a back injury, Donnie Mitchell could be a nice stash for fantasy owners this week and definitely help if you're banged up at the wide receiver position or with a lot of buys going on. Next player, Xavier Hutchinson of the Houston Texans. Xavier Hutchinson now, he's going to step in to a bigger role for this Houston Texan team with Nico Collins out minimum 4 weeks with the hamstring injury. Out there in 98% of fantasy leagues. And we saw last week once Collins went down, he saw the field, then he played pretty much all those snaps at the end of the game. 2 catches, 31 yards on 3 targets. So this week a good matchup at the Patriots. Give up the 13th most fantasy points to wide receivers on the season. And Hutchinson, he's a young player, but in an offense and with a quarterback like C.J. Stroud, where defenses aren't going to roll coverage his way, where they got to worry about Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell in the passing game, I think Hutchinson could be under the radar and definitely a wide receiver that can help fantasy owners this week and be a potential stash. Because if he goes out there and has a big game, obviously he's going to be added in tons of fantasy leagues. Next player, Jayln Tolbert of the Dallas Cowboys. He was on this list last week and he contributed in a big way, was Jayln Tolbert, but still out there in 72% of fantasy leagues. So last week, 7 catches, 87 yards, and a touchdown on 10 targets. Cowboys won at the end with 20 seconds left. Tolbert scoring that touchdown in the game-winning drive in the corner of the end zone. And like I said, Brandon Cooks, he's out 3 or 4 weeks more with his injury. But let's be honest, I think Brandon Cooks, his best days are behind him. The speed's definitely declined in the route running. And Jayln Tolbert in the offseason had a lot of first-team snaps when CeeDee Lamb was holding out to him. And Dak Prescott have built a rapport. He looked good last week, and believe it or not, he's got 3 out of 5 ball games with double-digit fantasy games is Jayln Tolbert. So he's definitely someone to stash this week. The next stash, Juju SmithSchuster of the Kansas City Chiefs. So Juju SmithSchuster, he had a big role in that Week 5 victory versus the New Orleans Saints, and he's still out there right now and on bye week is Juju, still in tons of leagues, in 69% of leagues. So a big game, like I said, for Juju. 7 catches, 130 yards on 8 targets. Rashee Rice, we know, is out for the season. Xavier Worthy, he's more of a slot guy and a gadget guy where he's not going to play a lot of number 1 wide receiver snaps. And pretty much Justin Watson, you're not going to see much from him, or Sky Moore. So Juju SmithSchuster, next man up in this offense for this Kansas City Chief team. And like I said, Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown out all the regular season. He's stepping into a big role. And when you got Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, you're going to put up some numbers and get opportunities. And obviously, we know Juju was there a few years ago and had a big season. After coming back this year, after getting cut loose by the Patriots, it's definitely someone to stash this week. And next player to look to stash is Ty Chandler of the Minnesota Vikings. Haren Jones, we saw it last week's ball game versus the New York Jets in London with the hip injury. And now he's week to week with that injury. So we don't know if he's going to come back next week after the bye. And Ty Chandler right now available in tons of fantasy leagues in 72%. So like I said, we don't know with Jones 100%, but obviously the Minnesota Vikings on bye this week. And we saw flashes from him last season where he's a decent receiver out of the backfield. In between the tackles, he's not bad. And his only competition, if Jones was to miss any time, Myles Gaskins, who we know he hasn't done much, especially the last few seasons in the NFL. So if you got a roster spot with Ty Chandler on the waiver wire, and like I said, with Haren Jones out, and I've said this a lot in my videos, Haren Jones is a great talent, no doubt about it. But injuries have always been a concern for him, and each season he's good to miss 2 or 3 weeks. So this could be the opportunity where he misses time. And right now, where you could get Chandler without putting a waiver on him or using fab money, this would be the time to do it as a speculative ad. Because like I said, if Jones is out a few weeks, you got a starting running back with all these bye weeks and injuries to plug right into your lineup. Next play is Vidal with the Los Angeles Chargers. He hasn't seen the field at all this season. is the rookie Vidal. But now with Gus Edwards banged up, and I've said this a lot in other videos, after the bye week, rookies, they get more into the playbook, they get playing time. And I think we could see Vidal now, because Gus Edwards, like I said, he hasn't practiced so far this week, going into the week with an ankle injury. And if he's out once again, I think Vidal, he's going to be active for this ball game and be the backup running back. No, Hassan Haskin is on the roster as well. But Kamini Vidal, they took a good fly on him in the NFL draft, and he's got good versatility. He could catch the football out of the backfield. So right now, like I said, we haven't seen much out of him, but if Gus Edwards is out, and we know J.K. Dobbins has had a lot of injuries throughout his career, Vidal, he's a deep stash, 98% of fantasy leagues he's available. And the final player I look to stash this week is Jayln Wright of the Miami Dolphins. Jayln Wright, I think he could get an expanded role as the weeks go on. We know they're on a bye week. Is this Miami Dolphin team? And right now you could go out there to the waiver wire and get Jayln Wright on your roster, available in 90% of fantasy leagues. So I know Raheem Mostert returned. I know Devon Achane had the concussion in week 5, left that one pretty early. But Jayln Wright, the last 2 weeks, he's shown flashes. Week 4 versus Tennessee, 9 carries, 32 yards on the target. And week 5 in New England, 13 carries, 86 yards. So in between the tackles, he's a more physical back. A kid they were high on coming into the season was McDaniel, and this offense taking him in the NFL draft. And like I said, at this point, he's going to get more work, I believe, as the season goes on. And we know after bye weeks, rookies get into the playbook more and get more playing time. So like I said, Wright's going to see the field more, I believe, for this Miami Dolphin team. And Devon Achane and him possibly could be a 50-50 split or 60-40 split as the season goes on, with Mostert being phased out of the offense, I believe. So that's a few players I look to stash before they break out or possibly get expanded roles. And you have to use a waiver of fab money on them for week 6 of the fantasy football season.